but if you see any casualties in this cemetery from the 36th Ulster Division, if they're 20 to 22nd, it's probably due to the fact that we didn't wait, not them all, but some of them that we didn't wait for the French.
Cemetery. The new stands for, it means that no soldier was buried here during the war. All was brought over here after the Armistice, so no soldier was buried here. Reason why they chose this spot is because this was free land after the war. You had a massive German ammunition depot here just at this spot. So I've just drawn out the lines of the actual cemetery, but during the war this was a large German ammunition depot. So you see all the little piles of ammunition and materials, and so it was a large German ammunition depot. So after the war, Germans were gone, they said so this would be a good place to bury all these soldiers who were scattered around the fields. They were at the River Liss, in every community, at every street corner, in the fields. There were hundreds of British field graves. Yeah. All these soldiers were brought over here after the war. There was also a little small German cemetery, just a little in the back, but you have the crossroads here. That is the train, the railway between Courtrai and Ghent. This is a tram road between Harlebeke and Deerlijk, and the Germans were buried just at the crossroads of these railroads. And they said, we will bury, it's like a sort of a sarcastic story, as they said, we will bury Germans here, they can rest, but they will not have much rest. Because you had all the time coming trams and trains coming over that place, so, but that German cemetery is not longer there. So the German cemeteries after the war, you had, just like the British, you had several little German cemeteries after the war, but in the years 50, after the Second World War, all these German cemeteries were concentrated into 4 big ones. And all the British soldiers that were in these German cemeteries were, for a big part, brought over here to Harlebeke. So in the back, we have the back rows, the plots in the back are most Scottish, Irish soldiers who fell in the last 3 weeks of the war. In between, we have British soldiers who are in German cemeteries, so you will find a lot of airmen here, because these airmen were flying over German lines, so they ended up in German cemeteries or in German field hospitals. So lots of airmen here in Harlebeke because they came from German cemeteries. Here in the front you have the most recent graves, as you have here 3 graves from the Second World War. So they're just there. You have 3 from the Second World War and 7 there in the back also from the Second World War. All the rest, 1,116, from which 10 are from the Second World War, all the rest is First World War. Average age here on this cemetery is 26 years. So we will go.
Is anyone 26? Any 26-year-olds?
Yep.
Start digging.
So we have
And the big hole.
on the
Something to
cemetery.
relate to, isn't it? Something to relate to if you have someone in the
On
group.
the cemetery there are 3 17 years old, there are 18 years old, and 79 who are 19 years old.
Youngster.
You want to speak more?
Yes.
Oh, do know what to do. It seems like they're walking back from the first one.
It's the simple bow.
It's when I see you sit down on the muscle straps.
It's about this man.
About this Scottish man, Mackenzie. So as I said, these graves here were brought over from German cemeteries who were concentrated into 4 big ones. So this man, Mackenzie, I have his actual grave. It was a Scottish man, Scots Guards, I believe. who was buried in Hallebeke German cemetery. And here you see this cross just after the war. You see Englander, Kenzie, Klein, Müller, Slomkowski. So he was buried together with 4 German soldiers in one grave. So there were 4, 3 Germans and 1 Scottish man, Mackenzie. After 1955, when these German cemeteries were concentrated into the 4 big ones, they were separated in a way. So Mackenzie ended up here, and the 3 Germans, Slomkowski, Müller and Klein, were in Menen German cemetery. So I can hardly imagine how they separated these bodies, or they said, "From this is the Englishman, this is the German one." But in theory, you have 1 Englishman, 1 Scottishman here, and the 3 Germans into the German cemetery. So this is his. He was separated from his German fellows, where he was buried with more than 40 years after the war. Okay, we go a little in the back.
Yeah.
Here are 14 and 15 and 16.
You learn what? How much?
October. Must be around here. Must not be too far then. So yeah, there's no. So here in this plot in the back, this was the original plot. So they were here. They were here first in the cemetery. So afterwards, the ceremony was the cemetery was bigger towards the road. So all the original cemetery was here, and here you will find men all from the last 2, 3, 4 weeks of the war. So mostly 20 October, just the crossing of the list. So these are all soldiers who were buried who crossed the list. Just for the Irish grave are all men who crossed the list at the place where we were just an hour ago. So they crossed the list there, and they didn't make it before the 26th of October 1918. So these people didn't make it to the very end. So these were all coming from a field graves around this region. So I'll tell you some details about some of them. If you can come with me. So if you could come all a little closer. So for my book, I have been through the military records. I went through battalion diaries from the Irish, from the Scottish, from the French, from the German, from the Belgian side. But I also went to the diary from our local priest in Daslehem. Was a man who was fascinated by the war. He noted lots of details into his diary. There were German officers staying with him at his place, at his house, and he noted all. He noted all details. This man, this name came from there, was from this unit, went to there. So I'm sure if the Germans had gotten hold of the diary of this local priest, they would thought he would have been a spy, because he noted so in detail all. So I went through this diary and compared things in this diary with the real, actual military situation. But a very interesting part of his diary was after the war. We were talking about April, May 1919. He was doing a walk around his community, and he noted all the field graves he found around. So lots of Irish soldiers here. He noted these names on the wooden crosses. So with this book, I could trace almost all the soldiers who are now in Harlebeke, who was in his diary. I have one particular here. It's about the soldier, and this is the original handwriting of the priest of Daslehem. So he notes in the lane put in the street where he found two soldiers with a wooden cross, and it says, "Rest in peace, Private C.A. Sporn, Royal Irish Rifles, 23rd of October 1918. His neighbor as a grave, Owens, also noted by the local priest. So, as I did for all soldiers, when I saw a name, Owens, in this for instance, I went to look up Owens. Well, he's here. Owens is here. Erwin Owens, yeah, he's there. So I went through these Commonwealth war graves files to look for Sporn, but I could not find him. So what I found was this note. It describes the graves, and it says Private Edwards, who is here. Edwards, Sporn, Irwin. The next thing, it says Edwards, a more recent list. It says Edwards, Irwin Owens, but here is unknown British soldier. So in a way, his name was not on an official list. He is not on the Tynecott Memorial. He's not on the Menin Gate. Thus there is no missing soldier known as Sporn. But the local priest noted his name. So it's the local priest noted it. The Commonwealth war graves noted it. But I think Sporn. Phil helped me a lot to look out for a Sporn or a connection or something. We cannot find it. So Sporn maybe was an alias. Maybe had something to hide. It was under another name. Maybe it was his mother's name. Maybe it was a nickname in a way. So there is no soldier Sporn known as missing. So here where Sporn is, it's an unknown soldier. But I know it's Sporn, as his fellow soldiers called him Sporn.
So the priest, what Gil says, the priest was. Harry would have been caught with them notes. He knew all the Germans' nationalities, who went to what church, what services, and he was very writing it down, all the graves. So the cross, I have no doubt, had Sporn on it. Mm-hmm. And as you see, it's backed up by the later Commonwealth graves, and then the later one that's scribbled out. But we've tried everything, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've exhausted all avenues.
Yeah. There are Sporns in the army, in the Ulster division, but not at that place, not at that time, earlier in the war, and so on. So we are still looking. It would be a great goal to achieve, to have his real name or to have him recognized as Sporn even so.
And just what Gil says is, many, as you know, many of the soldiers that did enlist, some of them did lie about their names and stuff like that. So it could be just what Gil says. Hopefully, an alias. I think we will identify him today, Gil.
So going through these records that the local priest noted after the war, I even found 9 Royal Enniskilling soldiers who were buried in my street. So they were just around the corner. I didn't know it. If you ask local people, did you know about field graves of soldiers? They don't know a word about it. Because in that time, the First World War, or the war in general, was something that was left behind. So there was not talked about. So these soldiers were here in the corner of my street, a little further up where I live. They were buried there until 22, 23, so they have been there for almost 3-4 years, but nobody knows a word about it. So they're all brought over here, they're all here, lined up, all 9. So they're here together, they were buried at my street, but nobody in Dasselham knows about it. These 2 are Lance Corporal David Kirkpatrick. I am having contact now with the family member who contacted me, maybe who will come and to look after the story of their ancestor here. And this young man here, Robbie Mole, I found a picture of him with thanks from John McCormick.
Yeah.
They helped me to find this picture of this young man here, Bobby Mole or so, and he's buried just here behind the. Also, Coldridge, the driver, with his 5 horses, who was killed on the banks of the River Liss, is rested here. That's driver Coldridge. Okay, we'll go in the back. So we are Sunday, 20th of October 1918. They have crossed the Liss and they are advancing towards Anzeham. So we had the noon of that Sunday, and the Irishmen are heading towards a mill in Deerlijk. You know, a mill was a mill with a German machine gun in it. So the Germans covered the whole landscape. So the Irish had to come close to that mill to take that machine gun post out, of course. And I've been to that place with Phil already. And so the Germans were firing from that mill, and they had to get near that mill without being hit by the machine gun, of course. And the Irish, the Royal Irish Rifles, the 1st Battalion, were so smart to make a hole in one of the buildings around the farm buildings and get to the inner place around the mill, and so get up the mill to take these machine guns out. And the farmer, which was interviewed some years ago, told that the hole where the Royal Irish Rifles got in the mill is still visible today. So when you go to that mill, you still see that round hole in the wall where the Royal Irish Rifles got their way through to get to the inner in the stables just around the mill. So there were heavy fightings around the mill. The mill took a lot of people out. One of them was the Lieutenant Colonel Jones, who was the head of the 15th Royal Irish Rifles. At that moment he was taken out together with some of his men. These men were buried all very close to the mill at a waypoint, a crossroads near to the mill. What was noted for all these people, it was kind of a mass grave where all these soldiers were buried in, and it said no means of separate identification. So did not know who was where, so they were all buried here at Harlebeke under the same coordinates 10B4. But they say it's Richmond, pickup, Burney, but Richmond could be there, Burney could be there, so they don't know exactly who was where, but they were all in this mass grave, taken out probably by the mill, which I have talked about. Lieutenant Colonel Jones was also killed in these fightings, but he was taken back, as I believe, as he was a colonel, as he was an officer, he was taken back to Beverleye. He was buried there in a field grave, separately from the rest, and he is here on the Harlebeke in a known identified grave. So that was how things went.
Colonel Jones was, you'll see he's not Royal Irish Rifles. He was brought in because the commanding officer of the 15th Battalion was injured. So what they brought in, he's from the Munster Leinsters. So if you were walking about, you would have thought, but he was the commanding officer of the 15th Battalion, the only commanding officer to die in the field.
So here at Harlebeke, he is the highest ranked officer. So I will show you his grave a little later on. So that's thank you for listening.
I think you all agree with me that the man's knowledge is absolutely outstanding, and let it be known, had it not been for that man there, and Anik, we have to give Anik, we wouldn't have a memorial, and I think that the work that this man does is absolutely outstanding. He's also a tour guide, and I would highly recommend him. And if any of you are ever coming out on any personal journeys, he is definitely the man to have by your side. And Gil, I'm proud to call you my friend.
Okay, me too.